And commissioner candidates to please take their seats down front, and we'll get started in just a minute. And don't change seats on us here.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Wilson. I'm with the Paducah Sun, and I will be co-moderating this with Matt Markgraf of WKMS, who he is the news director there. And we hope this session will be informative and interesting. We hope to keep it to right around 90 minutes. We might go a little longer if the candidates insist, but we hope it won't go much longer than that. The format is we're going to ask the same question to all of the candidates, and then we'll simply go down the row. We'll change the beginning point in each question so that we don't have the same person going first all the time. But we will have just 2 minutes for opening statements by each candidate, and then for each question we will allow 1 minute. And if there is any rebuttal, we'll give somebody 30 seconds if they put their hand up and say they want to say something else. And I'll let Mark now explain a couple of the details of how this thing is going to operate.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, and thank you to everyone who's come out tonight. Thank you to all of the candidates for joining us tonight as well. And thank you to everyone watching on Facebook Live on WKMS Facebook page as well. Also, we are recording the conversation tonight, and we'll be broadcasting it on WKMS at a later date, probably early next week sometime as well. So you can hear it there, and we'll also have it online at WKMS.org, and I assume on Paducah Sun's website as well. Just a couple more things on the technicals. You mentioned the time. The timekeeper is over there. Thank you to Kelly for running the time. She has it pulled up to 2 minutes right now for opening statements. As the timer runs down and the clock is almost finished, it'll start blinking. Believe me, you'll see the blinking. And so when you see it blinking, please wrap up your statement, and let's try to be mindful of everyone's time here as well, so we can keep this moving along at a good clip. The microphones, try to avoid picking them up and talking. They should be at such a level where they'll pick you up where you're sitting, so you can just relax and speak comfortably, okay? Do you have any other questions? Anyone have any questions? Okay, great. Well, without further ado, let's begin. The theme tonight is guiding a changing Paducah, and so
we're going to ask each candidate now to give us an opening statement. We want you to tell us who you are and why the voters should elect you. We'll begin with Brandy Harless.
Great. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you all so much for being here tonight. This morning we had the Chamber Forum, and I said it then and I'll say it now. I have been so amazed at the interest of this local race. I think it says a lot about our community that we're all engaged and ready to see Paducah really live up to its potential. Now, I'm running for mayor for a lot of reasons, not because of my disrespect for anyone that has led before me, but because Paducah really is at a tipping point. We're at a point in our community where we have to make decisions, and that it requires a different skill set to really take us to that next level of Paducah. And I know that I have that skill set. I went to Vanderbilt University and Boston University for grad school. I've had the opportunity to have a lot of executive leadership opportunities, and I know that those opportunities have really allowed me to have the skill set to take Paducah into the next generation. One of my main concerns is the economic opportunity and the fiscal responsibility that our leaders are carrying. Those things are very important to me, and I want to make sure that we're making the right decisions moving forward so that we can build on the foundation that we've created and that leaders before me have created. But you know, it's really time for the next generation to step up and lead Paducah, and I look forward to doing that. And so thank you all so much for being here tonight, and thank you guys for hosting this.
Good evening. I'm Gail Kaler. I'm mayor of Paducah, and I served 6 two-year terms as commissioner, and I've served my first term as mayor in Paducah. I'm running for re-election because I feel like the experience that I have within the community, within the leadership of Paducah, enables me to make sound decisions for the future of Paducah. We have a lot of things coming our way in the next 4 years. We have a lot of opportunities coming our way, both economic and socially. So we need that experienced leadership that I can provide the city of Paducah. We've done many things in Paducah since I've been mayor. We've had $60 million right now in commercial development within the city. We've got another $60 million in the pipeline for development here within the city of Paducah. We've had a tremendous influx of development within the downtown area. We've had $3.3 million in development downtown. So I want to continue that progress that we are making today and to take Paducah to the next level also, because I think that we have a tremendous opportunity in Paducah. We're just ripe to bloom in Paducah right now. We have a lot of young people that have moved in Paducah since I've been mayor. We have an 8% increase in 25 to 35-year-olds that live in the city of Paducah. And everybody knows that for us to grow, we do have to have the young people engaged, and I've worked really hard for that engagement with the young people. We also need our older generations for the wisdom and for the experience. So the combination of the two will make it perfect.
Richard. Thank you so much for this opportunity to come and talk to you about something that I'm extremely passionate about, and that is our city. I've been fortunate enough to gain the trust of the citizens of the city to serve several terms. We have tremendous assets here in the city. We have great partnerships in getting things done. A municipal in itself can't do everything, and that's why you need partners to come in. And first thing off my head is I go across the state sometimes and I talk to folks and they talk, what's going on in Paducah? And whenever I mention the community scholarship program, it blows them away. And they're like, how did you guys do that? I said, well, it doesn't really matter what side of the aisle you're on. Everybody in the room agrees that education is a tremendous stepping stone to change a person's life. So we agree on that, and then we move on. Now, some other things we may debate and talk about, that's one everybody can agree on. We have a lot of that in Paducah. You're always going to get disagreements on things, but that's okay. That's okay. That's part of it. I'm honored to be here, and I look forward to serving another 2 years if I am elected on November 8th. Thank you.
Mr. Bennett.
Thank you. My name is Frank Bennett, and I'm running for City Commission. As I was getting ready for tonight, I got to thinking about the wonderful Rotary Playground project that so many of us were involved with. Basically, in that project, 1,600 people who were passionate about Paducah came together and built a wonderful park that now thousands of people are using, and I was one of the people who volunteered for that. And one of the days I was working on it, the person who led my group was an actual professional carpenter. And he was actually on his 5th day helping the project. I overheard somebody ask him why he had committed so many volunteer hours to this project, in which he simply said, because I'm a carpenter and they needed a carpenter. We have so many things to be proud of in Paducah. There is so many wonderful things going on here right now. But for us to get to the next tier where we want to go, at the city level right now, we need leaders that have experience in business leadership and economic development. As most of you know, I'm the CEO of the National Quilt Museum. Before that, I worked for 2 years in economic development for Sage Fundraising Solutions. I've written a leadership book that's sold about 2,000 copies called The Breathing Organization, and I've been a leader in several other organizations. Now that you know my experience, let me tell you what I'm going to do. My campaign is really just about three things. First, looking at how we spend taxpayer dollars and more efficiently spending taxpayer dollars. Second, taking a deeper look at how we're doing economic growth and how we can do it better. And third, treating this entire community as one community in which every voice matters, because that is the only way we're all going to grow together. My name is Frank Bennett, and I need your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Steve, and thank you both for hosting this forum. Dubious distinction of being the oldest commissioner candidate on this table, and the oldest, almost the oldest candidate sitting at the table. But if I go back and think about my time in Paducah, I'm a long-term Paducan, and I've lived here for most of my 67 years. I'm a graduate of Paducah Tillman. My children are graduates of Paducah Tillman. My grandchildren will be graduates of Paducah Tillman, so we have a long vested interest in this community. I practiced law with Whitlow Roberts, Houston and Stroud for 20 years, and then retired, and my second avocation has been, I was following my bliss, which is education and preservation and the arts, and I went on to take an old building, the old Elks Lodge in downtown Paducah, and have an idea, started it from scratch, the way I do most of my ideas, and 5 years later, it's a nice little business. Why did I put my hat in the ring here? It's because when I look back at what I have done in the areas of education, preservation, and the arts, I have had foresight that none of the folks here have had. I had the foresight to draft the historic zoning ordinance to protect Lower Town before anybody knew that Lower Town needed protecting. Nobody cared. I had the foresight in the mid-1980s to advocate for higher educational delivery with the 2+2 program, and we're sitting in the building that is a result of that. The other building as a result of that is the UK College of Engineering. I can go on, but my time is out, and I have a lot to say. More than 2 minutes.
Thank you, and good evening to all of you, and we certainly do, as the other candidates have already stated, appreciate your hosting this forum. My name is Ronaldo Henderson, and I am originally from Chicago, Illinois. I have been in the city of Paducah for 24 years, coming from, obviously, Chicago. My wife and I have been married for 28 years, and we have 3 adult children, and so it has been a joy to raise our children here in the city of Paducah. I came to Paducah to pastor Washington Street Church, and have done so now for 24 years. We are the oldest congregation, the oldest African-American congregation in all of Western Kentucky. I'm not just a novice in terms of serving, because I have been serving even before now. I've served from the Foster Care Review Board to the Lourdes Ethics Board to the Paducah Housing Authority Board. So therefore, I do bring a host of skills and gifts and talents and wisdom to the table. I'm not the oldest and I'm not the youngest, but I do consider myself to be a tomorrow thinker. And I think that's what we need, people who can think about tomorrow and who can bring those gifts and skills and make Paducah better than it is right now. And as everybody else, I have a whole lot of things I'd like to say, and we'll try to get them stated in our time allotted. So thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you to WKMS and the Paducah Sun, and for everybody in the room for coming tonight to the forum. Before I introduce myself, I wanted to take a moment and share my condolences with the Newberry family. I've known that family my whole life, and they're the best people, and I'm so sorry for the loss of our former Judge Executive, Van Newberry. My name is Sarah Holland, and I am a 5th-generation Paducah native. I was born and raised here. I went to college at Transylvania University and received my law degree from the Washington College of Law. And I moved back here in 2009 before the birth of my first son because I could not imagine raising my family anywhere else. I also couldn't imagine that 7 years later I'd be the mother of not one, not two, but 3 boys. But here we are. And the past years have not only been a time of excitement and growth for my own family, but really a time of growth for Paducah. I'm running for City Commission because I'd like to see that growth continue. And I believe it's time, like Brandy said, for the next generation of leadership in Paducah. And I want to help make that happen. My work is in digital marketing, and so I've spent a lot of time over the last few years working with small businesses and helping them adapt to our changing economy and listening to their concerns about their relationship with the city of Paducah and how we could address those problems. I've volunteered with the Charity League of Paducah, the Oscar Cross Boys and Girls Club, and it's helped me understand the needs of Paducah's most neglected neighborhoods and citizens. And my work as a mother has helped me understand that every family in Paducah wants what I want for my boys, which is for their children to succeed and for at least one of them to move back and take care of me. So I pledge to bring all that experience to the City Commission and a passion for Paducah that is untouched. And I'm asking for your vote on November 8th.
My name is Eddie Jones. I have a degree in public administration, and I am a lawyer at Bell, Stouffer and Graves, which is a local firm here. I, with the other partners at Bell, Stouffer and Graves, basically manage a small business that employs 15 people. We together own 3 historic but old buildings in Lower Town, Paducah, so I have some real-time experience with maintaining 3 of your historic buildings. I understand what it means to cross your fingers when it's raining really hard and hope you've done a good job with the roof. My most important job in Paducah is that I'm father to what used to be a little girl, Allison. She's now 15. She's not little anymore. She attended Clark Elementary School, Paducah Middle, and tonight is playing her last home game at Paducah Tillman on the volleyball team. So I'm kind of a right-to-it kind of guy. What do you get if you vote for me? Yeah, here's what you get. I'm a fix-the-canopy guy. We've got a problem with our city hall. We wrote a lot about that last year and early part of this year. I'm a guy that wants to fix the canopy. Somebody else, well, what are you going to do about city hall? Well, I'm going to fix the canopy. And after we fix the canopy, if we fix the canopy, we scratch our heads, we look at it, and we do the next right thing. That's what you do with historic old buildings. So I'm a fix the canopy guy. Number 2, I'm the guy that keeps peppering your doorsteps with material about rethink and retool Paducah Power. Our relationship with Paducah Power. There was a statutory change in 2014 that I think opens up that possibility. I hope to get a chance to talk about that some more. And then I'm the bikeable, walkable guy. I keep annoying you on Facebook with bikeable, walkable posts. I believe I have a vision for a Paducah seizing its uniqueness as a small city to create a campus-like city that is connected with bikeable, safe routes. Thank you.
Well, thank you to the Paducah Sun and WKMS and all of you for being here. I'm Sandra Wilson. And this is very special to me to be in this building tonight for this forum, the Paducah Murray State Campus, because this is what inspired me to run for office 4 years ago. I was appointed to serve on a Murray State task force to determine how they could better serve Paducah. And our task force determined that a new campus here in Paducah was the right way to go. And I was part of a small group that lobbied the McCracken County Fiscal Court, the Paducah City Commission, and the Murray State Board of Regents to get that approval and to make this happen. In light of what happened today with the loss of former McCracken County Judge Van Newberry, I want to share with you that he was the first one that our core group went to meet with to ask for his support for local funding for this campus. He went with us, as well as others in this community, to Owensboro to look at the campus that Western Kentucky University had built in Owensboro and to see how it was working. Following that visit, he was all in, and he said McCracken County will take the lead in providing the funding to build a Murray State campus in Paducah, to build our lives better, to strengthen our education. So I would ask that our thoughts and prayers, as Sarah said, be with those families involved in this tragedy today. I had a lot of other thoughts that I was going to share about these past 4 years and our future. But I'm just going to conclude with saying that I'm grateful for these opportunities that I've had as a community activist and as the city commissioner these past 4 years. I have seen firsthand the progress that can be done when we work together and are united and asking and fighting for our priorities and not worrying about who's taking the credit. Our city and community have made some great progress these past 4 years, and we are ready for the future. I'm passionate about this community and ask for your support.
Thank you all. And I should also mention that Alan Rhodes is also a candidate for our city commission and was unable to make tonight's forum due to a prior out-of-town engagement. So, let's move on to standard questions. The response time for these is 1 minute. Let's begin with Mayor Kaler, and just like Steve mentioned, we're going to stagger the answers with each question, so everyone gets a chance to go first and last. Okay, so the first question will be, what do you think is the biggest need or needs facing Paducah today?
I would say the biggest need that we have in the city of Paducah is workforce development, because we truly don't have enough people to fill the jobs that are available even in Paducah, or the economic development pieces that are brought to Paducah. Many of them they decide not to stay here. We get cut at the last minute because we don't have enough people to fill those jobs. So that's something we've got to really work on. I mean, when you walk around Paducah or drive around Paducah, you see help wanted signs everywhere. There are jobs out there. We just don't have enough people to fill those jobs. Even our high-paying jobs are difficult to fill. I was talking with Helen Sims at Superior Care Nursing Home. She cannot get RNs or LPNs at her nursing home, and assisted living, which is a beautiful facility. She pays $30 to, am I through?
Yes, thank you.
Anyway.
Mr. Abraham.
I have a question before you start the clock. The clock starts when we start talking, correct?
Yes.
Okay, we're good. We're good. Just want to. Jobs is always at the top of that list. Developing a skill set to take care of the job that's available. The mayor mentioned that sometimes we make a list, we make a short list, but we don't bring it home. Western Kentucky Technical College has a seat at the table now because we have the skill set here. If we have industry that's thinking about coming to Paducah and they need a particular skill set, we have the skills and individuals here on this campus to put together a program to address those needs. It hasn't always been that way, but we have that as a tool in the belt. So, we have students graduating high school. You don't necessarily have to go to college. That's great. But you can go to work through trade. So I think jobs is the number one, and developing the skill set to handle the industry that comes in.
Mr. Bennett.
Yeah, it's really two things. First of all, we need new perspectives. A lot of times when you have a lot of people, which is what we have right now, who are talking about the same things for years, you can't see the forest through the trees. I think there's two things that we really need. We need new perspectives from people from the outside, and we also need to get into a culture in which everybody feels like there are no sacred cows, and we can actually challenge anything. One of the things we do at the Quilt Museum, for example, 3 years ago, we had our best year in 25 years. We had 10% growth. It was phenomenal. And the day I came in January, I said, okay, let's look at everything we did with no ego and ask ourselves if it can be done differently now and consider everything from scratch like it never happened. Those are the two things that need to happen at the city level right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Gwynn.
And I would agree with most of the folks that have spoken thus far that the economic situation has never been quite the same since USEC was closed. I think we have lots of opportunities to address some opportunities, particularly with the foreign trade zone and with the educational process that has been put in place between the city schools and the WKCTC board, which I have been a 28-year member of, that board has, under Barbara Beasley's leadership, has developed a workforce development program that is part of the reason why we got the Aspen Award. The secondary schools are also trying to fill the need for trained and skilled workers and using the Commonwealth Scholarship Program to do that. So there's some things in place that we can take advantage of. We just have not done it yet as a community.
Reverend Henderson.
Well, I agree with everything that has been said. We do need jobs, absolutely. We need a skill set development. But let me say something I think that may not be necessarily popular, and it's this. I think one of the greatest needs that we have in this community is to have a government that is inclusive. That's what we need. We got to have jobs. We have to have development. But we also need to be a people who listens and understands the needs of this city. I don't in any way mean to be negative, but the reality is, or the perception is that there's a great disconnect right now from the citizens of Paducah and the government. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what they need to do. They don't understand what's happening here, what's going on there. We need to have some type of connect.
Thank you. Ms. Holland.
Mr. Frampton asked me earlier, I told him that I'd knocked on about 3,500 doors across the city over the last few weeks, and he said, what's the number one thing you hear people say? And my answer to him was, it depends on the neighborhood. And what I realized, as Reverend Henderson was talking, is that it's because of what he said, and it's something that I talk about a lot. Everybody has a different problem, but underlying that problem is a loss of trust between the citizens and City Hall. There's a lot of reasons for that, but until we address that central concern, which is that people don't feel listened to, that people don't feel that their problems are being addressed and that their concerns are being met, I'm not sure how much progress we can make on other things that are vitally important, like jobs and workplace development, because the relationship itself is in need of transparency and communication and listening.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mr. Jones.
Well, obviously, everybody wants the jobs. We want a good economy. But I'm going to answer your question in terms of what can I really do as a member of a team on the commission. Well, I got to be on that team. There's a book written by Rebecca Ryan called Live First, Work Second, The Mind of the Millennial. It was written in 2008, but
You look at me.
but it makes a pretty good 2016 read. And it talks about how in this modern economy, one of the things I think we have to do is really truly develop our city as the place that people want to live, people want to work, and people want to play. I spent some time as a part of my work travels in Phoenix a couple of years ago, and nobody from Phoenix is from Phoenix. They're from someplace else. And I'm like, well, why did you come here? Well, because I could afford the house, because it had good restaurants, and because it was a great place to play. I think we need the spotlight on Paducah because I think we have those things, and I think that would be my job as commissioner. Thank you.
I believe we need to start with believing in ourselves and having a positive can-do attitude about what we can achieve here. When people move to this community, they love it. They find it as a welcoming community, a welcoming home for them. And I know of people who have turned down promotions to stay here in this community to raise their family. And sometimes I think we just don't celebrate ourselves enough and the great things that we have going on here. We may not be a perfect community, but we have a lot. And we have proven that we can do things ourselves. We don't have to rely on what other people are doing at the state or federal government. If we want something done in this community, we go out and do it. And that speaks volumes for what our people are. We have generous people that live here, and I think one thing that we could start with is believing in ourselves.
Thank you. Ms. Wilson.
Carlos. I know, that's a long list to get through before you come back around here. What is there new to say? I have plenty of new to say. Goodness grief, this is such a great panel of people because we all probably agree in this room that every single thing stated is exactly what is needed for Paducah. You know, as someone running to be at the helm of the city, I'll say this. I firmly believe that we need a solid 10 to 20-year plan that our citizens believe in and that we can all get behind. And I'll tell you the number one reason for this. We all talk about fiscal responsibility and our concern for the way our taxpayer dollars are being spent. And I know that one of the ways that we can solve that problem is by having that solid 10 to 20-year plan that we all believe in. And that is what holds us accountable to the way we spend our dollars. It's what gives us a true vision for where we're headed. Because right now what I'm afraid of is that we're making decisions right in front of our eyes and we're not looking 10 to 20 years out in front of us. And so that is the thing that I think is needed most. And then let's get back to the inclusion conversation because that is definitely number 2 in my eyes. And it will get us to that long-term 10 to 20-year vision.
Okay, thank you. The next question, and Richard Abraham, you'll have the first shot at this one. In recent years, the city of Paducah, despite its many assets, has not been very successful in attracting new businesses to town. This is especially true in the past 2 years. There's only been one job recruitment, and that was all of 25 jobs. How big a problem is this, and what can be done that isn't being done now to help turn it around?
Well, a municipal can do so much. Some of the talk that I've heard is about thinking maybe sometimes you have to think out the box. We have the city and the county uses taxpayer dollars for the Greater Paducah Economic Development Council. Scott Darnell and the fellas over there and ladies, they do a great job. When you talk about recruiting businesses, it's a lot of moving parts. Some of the things as mentioned earlier, you know, there's always a list, and we make a short list and we don't quite bring it home. That's economic development in a nutshell. You land some and you lose some, and we've lost a few. So I think collectively you get the brain trust together. You sit down, you look at what you've done in the past, what we can do differently to try to bring those jobs here, and you do that by bringing new ideas in, not looking at what you've done before, but kind of changing some things.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Bennett.
When I worked in economic development, I actually spent about 1.5 years helping companies look around the country on where they want to actually build new facilities and bring jobs. And seeing this from the perspective of the company, I said where there's things that we can work on. Basically what companies do is they'll make a weighted spreadsheet and consider all kinds of different variables, from tax structure to power cost to property use to potential employees, and we could spend all day on those lists. And then they'll compare regionally and based on population a couple dozen places and weigh it and then shrink it down to 2 or 3 and decide where they're going to go. In our case, there's 2 things that need to happen. First of all, while the economic group is great, getting new jobs and getting business is everyone's responsibility at the city level. And the reason why is if a company decides their most important things are related to other departments other than economic development, everyone needs to understand that this is job one, making this happen. And that's the first key. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Quinn.
I think that Paducah has got all the things in place to be able to shine. I think what is missing is a certain amount of infrastructure that can be put into place. But I also think we have a wonderful resource in our back pocket. If you look at a map of the United States, right in the center there's Paducah. And if you look where we are, we're tucked into all these inland waterways. The river has been the source of Paducah's birth and its death in 1937, and its revival with a lot of it was the first industry, marine ways. We have got now a designation as a foreign trade zone, a duty-free port. That is huge. With the opening up of the Tennessee-Tombigbee Waterway and the Mississippi River, we are the northernmost ice-free port in the United States. We need to have importing and exporting and grow our businesses that way.
Reverend Henderson.
I think that, first of all, what has to take place is that we have to create an atmosphere for new businesses. We have to create an atmosphere for growth. And in creating that atmosphere, I think the first thing that has to happen is that we have to work diligently to tear down the wall or to tear down the perception that is out there that Paducah only wants certain kinds of businesses. I think we have to have conversation. We have to sit down and talk about some things. And in that conversation, I think that what else we need to talk about is what kind of incentives can we offer. It's kind of like, how bad do you want me? How bad do you need it? How bad do you want it? And then I think we have to ask ourselves the question, what can we do that we have never done before? We have to be tomorrow thinkers, and so that means that we have to do some things that we've not done before. We have to make some adjustments that we've never made before, but that comes in creating that kind of atmosphere for growth and for new businesses.
Thank you. Ms. Holland.
Yeah, so what I talk about a lot is the next generation of leadership, and as somebody from a different generation than most of the people running for city commission, I think that we need to move past the idea that one big employer is going to come in here like USEC and save Paducah and pump in all these jobs. That's not the global economy we live in anymore. It just isn't. And I think that we need to start thinking about our economy like you would a portfolio, and it needs to be diverse. And it's not maybe going to just be one big plant. Maybe it's going to be this small employer and this small employer, and we're going to build a diverse, adaptable, and more dependable in the long run economy that will employ a diverse population, a diverse skill set, so that we're not just dependent on one type of workforce development. These dang millennials, they always want to rewrite the script, and I think that that's what we need to do here.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
Okay. Well, all right, if we look at what's happening in Atlanta, we look at what's happening in Portland, we look at what's happening in St. Louis, you're going to be sick of the words bikeable, walkable. And when I say bikeable, walkable, I'm not talking, first of all, I don't ever intend, it's not my desire to get on a bike and ride at 40 miles tomorrow. I'm not bikeable, walkable because I necessarily want more opportunities for recreation. I'm bikeable, walkable because I see Paducah and the size of Paducah and the shape of Paducah, and I see, hey, this would be pretty easy to make campus light. I'm not talking next year, but I'm talking over the next 15 years. We do something like that, all of a sudden, everybody wants, it's like what she said, they want to live here already. You add that to it, and they really want to live here. I would add, we heard this morning some of the reasons why somebody didn't come, and I think we need more transparency of that. It does help to know why people reject us. Makes me a better boyfriend sometimes when I know why somebody rejects me. I at least know what to work on. So I think we hear the successes, but we need to hear the transparency of the failures. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
This may be on the fringe of the time frame you mentioned, but these are some companies that people probably don't even know are in Paducah. They've located here in the last 2, 3, 4 years. Whitehall, Genova, Teletech, HT Hackney did a big expansion. Both of our hospitals have been hiring. CSI, Dippin' Dots, HB Fuller have been hiring. Our river industry. Our Riverport just received the Foreign Trade Zone designation, a national award for container on barge. Our DOE site, we have replaced those jobs. We fought in DC with the Department of Energy to make sure that the next contract was much longer than a 3-year one in order to give the people that are working at that site, 1,600 plus, some stability with a 5-year contract and a 3-year and a 2-year extension. We also we just have to keep home growing our own while we are actively recruiting across this country and across this nation for people to move here. My time's up.
Thank you. Ms. Roberts.
When you say Genoa, I believe I had a conversation with the city commission or the city finance director. He said that the city is losing money on Teletech, that they're not paying their taxes, and that the deal was not such a good deal for Paducah. We brought in some jobs, but there's about $200,000 a year that we're not getting from them.
Thank you. Ms. Harlow.
You know, I think about the shrinking population of Paducah, and that starts to concern me quite a bit, because the reality is that with 25,000 people or less, we don't compete that well for those jobs that we're all looking for. A lot of times companies are looking at population size, and yes, we can make a great argument that we are a regional hub, and that is absolutely incredible, which is why regionalism is something that I think is very, very important for our future. The 8 counties that make up the purchase area are 210,000 people in those 8 counties. And so Paducah has always been the leader in the region, and we have to stand up and bring all those people together to the same table and start having this conversation, especially in our river industry. The river industry is ready and willing and able for us to take that more regional approach. The river counties are starting that process, and we've got to get on board as the regional leader and make sure that we're the ones leading that charge and recruiting those companies into our region.
Ms. Keller.
The model that we have used in the past when we've recruited industry to Paducah is you basically buy the jobs, because, you know, these large companies want incentives to come to your community. So we can no longer use that model. We don't have the money to hand out bribes anymore for big companies to come here, use the money up, and then leave us. We need to work with our local companies, with our local businesses, to ensure that their businesses can grow, that they can hire more people, that we can increase opportunities for entrepreneurship, that we can increase opportunities for innovation with our jobs, with our opportunities here in Paducah. And to me, that's the future of the growth of jobs in the city of Paducah.
We'll move on to our next question, and this is somewhat related. While recent data reports a boost in the 25 to 35-year-old population, Paducah has suffered a 5% population decline since 2000, and going back further, you can see a steady loss of population over the past 50 years. How does the city reverse this trend? And we'll start with Mr. Bennett.
Thank you. A lot of times economically, you'll hear people refer to this as a bucket with holes, where what we're actually having happen is for our population to grow, especially among talented people, you have to be able to get enough jobs to go from when you graduated from college to retirement and to prosper and move up in your career as you go. What keeps happening to us is that everybody reaches a point where they can't expand to their next highest tier of job without leaving this community, and that's the thing we have to fix. The average person in our economy now will have 7 jobs between when they leave college and when they choose to retire. We have to have enough different jobs available in different career paths so that you can go through that entire process from beginning to end and get all those promotions while in Paducah, and then we can actually curve the tide of that. Because what's happening right now is that whether it's job 2 or job 6, eventually people are leaving a point where they can't continue to promote without leaving this economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Quinn.
Look at the vacant lots on the south side of Paducah. Nothing's going into them. We need to have an aggressive neighborhood revitalization program, and it needs to be, it can't be a cookie cutter from a lower town to a Fountain Avenue. You've got to take that from the grassroots up. It's messy because people are going to have different ideas, and not force it from the top down. That means engaging with the citizens, and I do think that the current commission has not engaged citizens on this issue as much as it should have. I will promise that I will engage citizens, and we will try to come up with a plan to get rid of those vacant lots and fill them up with something good. Mixed-use development, land use strategies are available for those. You just got to build the incentives in. And I will tell you, if you have a vacant lot, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that if you have something on it worth property taxes of $2,000 versus $10,000, you've made money. If you.
May I read that?
Yes.
Thank you, Ann. I would just like to say we have extensively involved the citizens of the neighborhoods that we go into. The neighborhood I live in, Lower Town, that was the brainchild of a resident that lived in Lowertown that was tired of the slumlords and the drug deals on the corner. And he's the one that went to the mayor and said, let's do something about this. When we went to Fountain Avenue, we engaged the citizens before we even began that process. So yes, we do.
Thank you. I'll put a minute back on the clock and we'll go to Reverend Henderson.
Yes. As you know, I pastor the Washington Street Church, and over the past few years, our church has experienced a decline in young adults. And one of the reasons that we've experienced a decline in young adults is that those young adults have to leave Paducah in order to find lucrative employment. And I think they leave every weekend to go to Nashville, to go to St. Louis, to go to Louisville, to find entertainment, to find things that they can't find in Paducah. And so I think that as we talk about being tomorrow thinkers, or at least as I'm talking about being a tomorrow thinker, we have to find ways to engage that young adult group in the city of Paducah where they can have ownership, but they have to know that they're going to have lucrative employment. They have to know that perhaps they can be the CEO. They have to know that, and right now they don't.
Thank you. Ms. Holland?
So I like to think that I'm uniquely qualified to answer this question because I did choose to come back to Paducah after my husband and I, well, my husband's not from Paducah, but after I left to go to college and I got married and I lived in Washington, D.C., and I chose to come back and make a life here. And the reason I did was a lot of reasons that I think we could offer other people high quality of life with a low cost of living. I like to tell people my husband and I played a game when we came back called "You're Never Gonna Believe What I Paid for This" after living in Washington, D.C. for several years. So I think that we have a lot to offer, but if you think about it, my husband and I represent the changing economy. He is a lawyer, he's in the service economy. I am a freelancer, so I'm in the gig economy. That's how our economy is changing. And so we have to think about where those jobs are, who are the people filling the jobs in our changing economy, and how do we appeal to those people? We have a lot to offer freelancers and service economy, especially young families who want to live in Paducah, who want a low cost of living, great public schools, and a great standard of life.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
All right, so I think you have to mix with that. At the same time, the county hasn't grown, but it hasn't lost population. And I think you have to go back to a fundamental question of, well, why do you live in the city now? I mean, we're no longer at war with the Indians, so we don't gather there for protection from them. The county has plumbing. The county has electricity. So some of the reasons that historically you would naturally want to live in the city are gone. So what are those? We have to ask ourselves, what are the reasons that we want to live in the city now? Well, I agree with you. We've got this great riverfront. We've got some great things. But if you live in Kevel, you can experience the riverfront. You can still drive to it. So I'm back to bikeable, walkable again, aren't I? One of the reasons to live in the city is that we have this unique way of being able to connect from our driveway and our front door to our cool things and thus become that cool city. So there, I made it all the way back.
Ms. Wilson?
We have seen, as you've mentioned, the resurgence of some of our young professionals coming back. And 4 years ago when I ran, that was something I absolutely talked about. And I named several people, including my daughter, that I hoped and prayed would come back here. And we're seeing that happen. They've bought houses, they're buying into businesses, and they're bringing having families here. So I think that we need to continue to do the things that would build amenities here that will attract young professionals. We have a new young professionals organization with 175 members in it that are networking together, building their careers together, and they absolutely could be used to help bring other people here. Did we have maybe a lost generation of people that moved away and didn't come back? And how sad is that? And now some of their families are possibly moving to be back with them. The population decline is something that just is surprising and startling when you drive around the city and you see all of the building and all the growth from buildings that you would see going on.
Thank you. Ms. Harless?
So I think back to when Jeff Speck came to town. I'm sure a lot of you guys saw him. He wrote the book Walkable Cities. And one of the things that he observed about Paducah was we were ripe for two types of people. People who wanted to retire and young people who wanted to take chances and start businesses. And I think he was right on. You know, the millennial generation, the ages 25 to 34 that we're mentioning, just outgrew the baby boomers. I don't know if anyone saw that this summer, but they did. And mayors across the country who are in that generation are being elected by cities our size, and they are doing a tremendous job of recruiting their peers back to their cities. Because when you look back home and you see that your population that you loved so dearly has elected a young mayor just like you to lead that city, then you are more confident that you're going to have a like-minded person who is putting those things into place that everyone has mentioned on this panel to make it your quality of life the thing that you're looking for. So that's why I am running for mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly.
What was the question? I mean, when
Population
you're the last
decline.
one, you go
Population
you know.
decline.
Population decline.
Well, you know, population decline is a phenomenon across the country. It's not unique to Paducah. It's not unique to McCracken County. All smaller communities especially are seeing that population decline. And a lot of it is just because people aren't having as many babies. I mean, people are having fewer children today. My daughter and son-in-law have one child. So, you know, people today understand the great expense of having children. I don't think as many people have children today. And not that that's the total reason that we have a population decline here. If I knew the answer to that, you know, I could win the $1 million question. And I don't think any of us have a handle on that, why that is happening, why that phenomenon is happening. I don't think having a young mayor is going to make a difference. As I said this morning, I'm a young thinker. I don't think you have to be young to think young.
Thank you. Mr. Abraham.
When you talk about population decline, that's a challenge. What we've tried to do on the council is when you look at revitalization, when you look at what happened in Lower Town, when you look at what's going on presently at Fountain Avenue, the last few houses that's being built there, folks just wanted to come there and build a house. Why? Because that neighborhood does not look the same when I grew up in that neighborhood. So we use that as a tool. When you look at the investment, $13 million in that, that's not Nashville, that's not St. Louis, but that's not bad for a town our size. We are a unique community. We're a tale of two cities. We have the retail and we have the homegrown restaurants and businesses downtown. So it's a challenge, and we have to look at different ways to encourage people to come back to Paducah, to move into our inner cities.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, our next question, and Ann, you'll be first. In talking with city leaders and county leaders here and in other cities in Kentucky, I've heard a similar theme, and that is that the better the cooperation between especially the elected officials in city and county government, the better those communities have been doing, economically and in other ways as well. Is the level of cooperation here in Paducah and McCracken County adequate? And if not, what needs to change?
I had a conversation with Judge Leeper fairly recently, and I do think we don't cooperate across city-county lines the way we used to. Back when Jerry Montgomery and Danny Orzine were leading the county and the city, they were constantly together. We had a division. We can overcome that again, but we have to get people on the same path and going toward the same goals. And so if we have common problems, instead of letting the city decide for them and the county decide for them, let's do more joint sewer agency kind of problem solving, where we put the best of both worlds together and let them tackle the problems. We've got a lot of really talented folks in the city. We don't need so many consultants, I don't think. But if we'll identify those who can make a difference and start communicating, I think we'll solve a lot of our problems.
From what I people, that does not seem to be the kind of cooperation between the city and government that perhaps, as has been said, as it should be. I think that as I look at it, everybody's looking out for themselves. Everybody's looking out for number one. And I think in anything that we look at, my point of reference is the Bible, and that is that two can always work together. I mean, you do better when you're together. You accomplish more when you're together. And I've said it before that I think that whomever our county commissioners, whoever's elected as mayor and city commissioners, we have to get past our personal agendas and try to determine what's best for the masses, not what's best for our particular agendas.
No. I guess I'll expand on that. No, there is not a level of cooperation. And I think when I spoke before about the loss of trust between the city government and its citizens, that lack of trust affects the relationship with the county and most certainly affects the citizens of the county's perception of the city. It's not like they don't see the same stories or they don't read the same newspaper, and that not everyone is not concerned about the same things. People that live in the county are concerned about population decline and are concerned about economic growth, just like people in the cities. And I think that if there is the perception that there is not enough communication and not enough transparency, that absolutely affects the relationship with the county as well.
Get in on that. A few years ago, there was a issue on the ballot. Metro government. Do you want metro government? It was pretty clear that that was a no. Okay, there was a reason for that. Now, where did that divide come from? Sometimes I scratch my head. So why is it looked at as that the city and the county are against each other? Where did that come from? Where did that start? With me, I don't think that that's anything that's healthy. So we need to make sure that we get whatever it is out of the way and move this community forward together.
Mr. Abraham, we'll come back to you. Eddie Jones is next.
Well, how can I make this bikeable? I'm just kidding. I don't know. I think it is important, and I will say this, that Commissioner Rhodes has done a pretty good job of reminding the county that everyone in the city is also in the county, and that therefore we have some, they represent us as well. I think the other thing that they need to be reminded of, and please don't take this too crazy, but the county doesn't have a choice. It has to be a county. The city, we're actually a choice. We choose to be a city, and sometimes, we're probably too big to do the Lone Oak threat, but they ought to think about that every now and then. What if we weren't here? You take City Hall. But in general, I guess, the first thing I did after the primary was I went to meet with Judge Leeper, and I'm not sure I sense a lack of cooperation. I know there was a 911 thing going on at the time, but I felt generally that I thought he'd be cooperative with me. So that's it.
This building is a perfect example of a city and county cooperation. And there are many others that could be quoted and used as examples. From my perspective, when our organization goes to Frankfurt every year to fight for our transportation issues and other things that are important for us, our city and county are both at the table, representing us there as a united front. When we just went to D.C. to fight for our community, the city and county were both there in a united front. This morning I had something I wanted to talk to Commissioner Bartleman about. I approached him and said, hey, can we talk about this for a second? We are in agreement with a certain issue. I talk to Commissioner Byer frequently, and Scott Wathen was with us in D.C. I would be surprised to hear Judge Leeper say that we weren't cooperating with him and that he felt like that was a problem holding our community back between the city and the county.
You know, I think that the cooperation has definitely improved over the last several years. I think that's true. We know that some former leaders were definitely more contentious against each other than others have been recently. But I'll say this, cooperation on the surface level is definitely nice, but I think an intentionality is what we're lacking. The intentionality that I'm talking about is the direct communication constantly between our mayor and our judge executive. I actually sat down with Bob before I filed my paperwork because one of the things that was very important to me as a mayoral candidate was that he would be willing to be in constant communication about a lot of things that are going on. One of the things I think he's done a great job at the county level is, and he did this at the State of the County address back in January, is he shared with us all the lessons that he's learned as he has fine-tooth combed the county and tried to find those efficiencies. And so he's done that part, and I think that it's up to our mayor and hopefully me to be able to have that constant communication, bi-weekly communication about what's happening so that we're always on the same page and we don't have those points of contention come up.
Thank you. Ms. Gilbert.
Personally, I want you to know I have a great relationship with Judge Leeper. We meet on a regular basis with the Department of Energy, and we go over issues concerning that site. Jennifer and Robert want to keep us clued in to what's going on there. Friday, the judge is meeting on a transportation issue. The two of us are meeting with a transportation group at the Chamber of Commerce. Some of the things that we have cooperated on and that we have achieved as a city and county is the animal shelter, 911, working with the Department of Energy, the police and the Sheriff's Department work closely together. Our fire department, as well as the volunteer fire department in the county, work closely together. You know, and as Eddie said, we're county residents. We live in the city, but we're county residents. We love it so much, we pay the taxes twice.
Thank you. Mr. Everett.
So it's interesting when you talk about this rift. Is it a perception or is it real? You can look at projects that we've jointly worked on together and they're successful. Yet when you put it on the ballot, do you want to come together as a metro government? Resounding no. Okay, so you can't say, well, we're going to do it anyway. It doesn't work that way. So maybe there are some barriers, there are some perceptions, and hear a lot of talk about being transparent. Well, how transparent do you want to be? I mean, we can talk about, and you can look at anything that the city's doing. The way I feel about it, anything that I'm doing is your business because your dollars are paying for whatever we're doing. So there's no secrets there. Sometimes there's a perception that the city and the county don't like each other. And where might that come from?
Thank you. Mr. Bennett.
This is actually pretty simple in my eyes. Basically, we need a rephrasing of the language. It's not two teams working together, it's one team. Whatever happens in the county, in the city, all these boats float together. We all are either going to be successful as a region or we're not together. What we have right now is, first, we have teams. Second, we have multiple people trying to be the running back on the team. I wanted to get a sports analogy in there for you as I sit next to you. But we have too many people. We need to get this together, and it's real simple. We need to get to communication occurring that is a rephrasing of the entire idea of city-county. I grew up in a city that had a city-county government and eventually merged. As you go through that, it's about rethinking to one culture, not two cultures working together. We are all one team, and everyone just needs to understand that. Thank you.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll begin with Reverend Henderson. Assuming that the Legislative Assembly passes the local option sales tax in the next session, would you improve implementing this? And if so, how would you implement it?
Well, obviously, we would certainly, I would think we would certainly work to improve that because obviously it's going to benefit our city. We're talking about joint government, not joint government, but we're talking about county and city, so obviously it's going to improve both. So yes, I would be in favor of working to do that. How we would do all of that, I certainly don't have all the answers to make that, but I certainly would be in favor of doing so.
the local option sales tax came up this morning at the forum, and I thought Representative Watkins had some really good things to say about it, but I think that it presents a good opportunity to rebuild that trust. It's a good way to have very specific projects in mind and to watch this people put the trust in the city government to have those projects implemented. And so I think it presents an opportunity to, like I said, improve the relationship between the city and its citizens. So I think it would be a great idea.
My turn?
Mr. Jones, yes.
I was waiting for the clock. All right, so local option sales tax, obviously we can't do that unless Frankfurt says we can do that. Not only can we not do that unless Frankfurt says we can do that, then it has to go to the state, and the voters have to say we can do that. It's a great idea. It passed the House. Right now, our problem is with the Senate, and we need to get it, well, we can't get it out of the committee. We got to get it out of the committee and get it to the Senate, and frankly, what we need is who on that Senate committee is opposing it, and we want to know their names and why they're opposing it, and then see what we can do to the legislation to get it out of committee. And I think we've got to be more proactive about that now, Chamber of Commerce, and I know you are. It's a big deal. And I think now we know what to do and who to do it and who to have that conversation with and find out why they don't like it so we can get it out of committee. There. All you know.
Well, the best part about LIFT is the voters get to decide. It's not a city issue, a county issue. The city and county come together. First of all, it has to be approved by the legislature, again, as you said, then it has to be approved by the state. Then a plan has to be developed on what that money would be used for, and then the voters across the community decide how it would be spent. It has a sunset clause on it once something is paid for. You know, we hear all the time about Elizabethtown Sports Park. Well, it wasn't funded through LIFT, but it was funded through another tax increase. But with LIFT, everybody decides on that, not just the city commission. We could possibly have a sports park. People talk about that all the time. And they can range from 15 to 22 million. If our community really, truly wanted that, they could vote that in if LIFT passed. We have supported that and have been very active in supporting that.
And I didn't aim to infer that the chamber had, and that's a big part of the chamber.
The local option sales tax is an absolutely incredible opportunity for cities like ours. A city that is very timid when it comes to raising taxes because, like Gail said, we're paying them twice. So we're all very hesitant for that. The great news about that, as Sandra mentioned, is that the voters get to choose whether or not that tax gets added and for which project it gets added for. So it's a great opportunity to, as Sarah mentioned also, to build that trust back. You know, the recent community survey demonstrated a lack of trust in city government of our citizens. It was down in the 40% range, I think it was. And so this option would really give us that ability to start having that conversation, really increase citizen engagement, because that's the epitome of the local option sales tax, is to make sure that voters are on board with that and that they agree with whatever project is coming down the pipeline.
Ms. Kelly.
Local option sales tax, I think everybody's pretty well covered all the parts of that. It's certainly something that has to be done at the state level. The best thing we can do if we want that to happen for this community is to lobby our legislators in Frankfurt. It's really the only way we can make that happen.
Thank you. Mr. Abraham.
It gives the elected officials an opportunity to, once the citizen says, okay, let's do that. Okay, so what are you going to do, right? Whatever the project is, you go out and you talk face to face, and your idea, your plan, your project has to be sound because you want them to be excited about what you're doing. They have to believe in what you're doing. So that, again, I have never had an issue with face-to-face, ask me anything, I'll tell you best I can. That is an opportunity for us to move forward in some areas. You talk about sports parts. I'm a personal trainer. I know how much money that brings in. I know that one 12-year-old softball girl brings at least 4 people with her when she comes to a tournament. And our guys are going to Jackson and you know, Commissioner Wilson knows that better than anyone. It goes out. We could do that right here, and that's a tool to do. That would be a tool to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett.
Local option, if it passes, would be great. As most of you guys know, Kentucky is one of the top 10 states in the country in percentage of your tax dollars that go to the state level and don't stay in our local markets. Since we're here in Western Kentucky, that's really a burden to us because so much of our tax dollars do end up going to Frankfurt, and having this option will give us some flexibility in the future, so we'll see if that happens. Generally, when I talk about tax issues, though, I like to focus on what we actually are trying to achieve and then look at the funding, and that's really what's going to come down to is where are going to be the goals that match the money if it does pass. But above all else, as long as we're talking about taxes, why don't we look at the current budget and what people are spending money on and see where we can cut some money there and use it for new projects while we're talking about the whole tax thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Since everyone's pretty well covered my opinion on the local option tax, I think it's a great tax, a progressive tax, but I don't generally like increasing any taxes. And we have in Paducah a history of enacting a 0.5% payroll tax back in 2006. It was supposed to sunset. It was made permanent. So I think this is a tax that is good if you can get the city and the county working together for a particular project and get the buy-in of both. And as Sandra and Richard have both said, people are killing us on those sports plexes, and it's a wonderful family thing. That would be a good healing project, perhaps, to whether it's funded by the city and the county or by a local option tax. It ought to be considered.
Matt, can I have?
Yeah, you have 30 seconds on it.
I just want to add that the Chamber has done excellent work on this project, and I was just merely suggesting now that we know the names of the committee members, we can go directly to them and have these individual conversations. Paducah Chamber has done a great job in advocacy for this program.
Down there? Are you beating him up down there?
How's where it is.
Well, I will say something about that from what Ann said. By law, with the lift tax, it does have a sunset. If we had a $20 million project, when that's paid for, that tax absolutely by law goes away.
Okay, we'd like to get your opinion on the Paducah power system. And we'd like specifically for you to tell us what you think the city's role can be in helping reduce power rates. As you know, Paducah Power operates independent of city government, but that's not to say that it's completely detached. Paducahans have been paying the highest electric rates in the state of Kentucky for the last several years. They have come down a little bit recently with the reductions in the power cost adjustment, but they're still as high or higher than anywhere else in the entire state. What might we do that we're not doing on a city level to help make things different?
Eddie is pinching me because he wants my time, so I feel him nipping at my heels. I have been really encouraged by the leadership at Paducah Power. As I'm sure you know, the Paducah Sun had a story that they are trying to move into a longer-term plan to reduce rates through a lot of options. And so I think that we are on a positive track with that. I know that there are some scribbly notes, that there are some options for an increased role of the city. I think that if we are going the right way and the leadership at Paducah Power is doing its job, I don't think there's a need to drastically change that relationship. I think drastic changes to the relationship between Paducah Power and its citizens is how we got into this mess. So I think that, again, trusting the leadership and where it's going forward and hopefully continuing to see the rates drop. But I know Eddie has something to say. We'll see the rest of my time to you.
I do, and this answer won't have bikeable, walkable in it. Okay, so in Paducah, our power grid is one of the few unregulated power grids in the state and the nation. And it's not unusual for a city to help regulate the price of a power grid. Henderson does it, Orangeboro does it. Why do they get to and we don't? Well, it's because in 1943, they had a power plant under construction and we did not. We are organized under what's called the Little TVA Act, which basically sets up what we have, which is a separate entity in which all we really have is charm and persuasion with regard to the Paducah Power Board as to what they can or can't do. However, in 2014, the legislature did away with the classifications of the city, and it made an old statute relevant to Paducah. And there's been a 1943 case that interpreted this statute, and I believe it opens the door for us to pass an ordinance that protects us from an ordinance increase without the transparency that we should have. If they want to raise our rates, they need to come before the cameras, tell us why, how long, and what caused it.
Thank you. Ms. Wilson.
Well, for many years, our community did enjoy lower energy rates, and across this area through Jackson Purchase and through Paducah Power. And unfortunately, there were decisions made by a board that impacted us negatively. And I believe that we took steps to try to correct that by removing, almost demanding the replacement of the manager there. I believe we have a good, strong manager now with Gary Zing. I'm very encouraged by the things that we see about their strategic plan. We have some good, smart business people on that board that are making decisions, and I really hope that they will continue to turn that around, and I know that they know that it's being watched by the business community. We have, as a part of the business community, we've had them come talk to us about their plans and how that they're going to make a difference, because we can't have the highest rates in the state.
This is a timely question. Actually, we had that this morning, and I actually met with the general manager of Paducah Power for a couple hours this afternoon to learn about what is his perspective of where we are. I do think that they have made the right decision of who to hire. He is very aggressive on this issue. It's a very complicated issue. We basically overinvested significantly in a lot of different streams of power. So we're in a bad situation. There is no doubt about that. I told Gary today that my intention will be to always keep my finger on the pulse as mayor so that that doesn't let up. And he was very receptive to that. He thinks it's very important that we don't stop asking the question, what is the next move we can make to start lowering those rates? Unfortunately, I think they're going to come down very slowly because of the market moving so slowly on that. But I told him I'm very intentional about this. This is very important to me. It takes away from our residents, and it really does hurt us in being competitive in the region.
Thank you. Ms. Keller.
When all of this first surfaced, I was newly elected mayor. So I took the steps to encourage the board to fire the general manager, which they did. I told the board to take the steps to tell the chairman of the board to resign. They did. I appointed 2 new board members, very adept businessmen within the community. They're wonderful board members. Hardy Roberts is now the chair of Paducah Power. I think as far as the board being a well-run board now, it is a very well-run board, but they're caught in a dilemma that there's few options for them except to continue to try to sell the excess power, which Gary does diligently. He works all the time to sell that excess power, so they'll just have to keep working to get that down.
Mr. Abraham.
Actions that were taken years ago has come back to bite us. I talked to Mr. Zing when he first got here, and it's pretty much, he has this notebook of information, and he's looking at it, and his hands are like, we have to work our way out of this mess. So we voted to reshape that board. We have our city manager sitting on that board. I think Mr. Zing and the new leadership over there is doing a much better job of, first of all, just understanding what they're doing. I think some decisions were made in the past that wasn't, maybe the skill set wasn't where it needed to be at that time, but we're here. So we have to deal with what's in front of us, and I think we have the leadership over there in place to do that.
I just want to clarify, Commissioner, when you said we, that's the board.
Correct.
Not us, not the commission and the mayor that makes those decisions.
No, when you said
the board.
you reappointed, I mean, you
Right.
appointed new people. We
Right,
confirmed-
which is
we
what I
confirm-
can do as mayor.
Right,
to the
and
board.
we confirmed those.
Right, right.
That's what I meant.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
We.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Bennett.
A lot of things that have been said here are true. We are definitely have a much stronger board right now. We're definitely dealing with issues that happened a long time ago. There is an underlying issue, though, that I still want to bring up because I think it really matters, which is at the end of the day, the fundamental flaw that still exists is that we have 5 people on a board who are able to make any decision they want to make, and there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. There is no oversight to that process at all. And frankly, 5 people that have that level of power in the city, sometimes you have a good board, which I think we do now. Sometimes you don't. And there's a lot of other cities that have tripwires in place. For example, there are cities where you can't make an increase of a certain amount within a certain amount of time without that getting approved by the city commission. There's different ways we can tripwire this. The way it's set now, if you end up with a bad board again, we could have an issue again, and that's an issue I'm sensitive to. It's unlimited power. It's not a place we need to be.
Thank you. Ms. Quinn.
Decision gone bad years ago when the city was trying to, or not the city, the Paducah Power was trying to engage in its own economic development. I think that the issue has been hashed and rehashed, and I would suggest to whoever is the next mayor who is making these appointments that Eddie Jones be the next appointment to the Paducah Power.
Well, I think that we, unfortunately, we learned what I already knew, and that was, of course, our power bills were obviously way too high. In my job, I deal with people every day. When I say every day, I literally mean every day, whose power had been cut off because they just couldn't afford to pay the bills. And so, therefore, whoever the we were down there, they did a good job in appointing and asking for the resignations and appointing new people, and they are doing an excellent job at this point. But I do think that the important thing is, and I agree with Brother Bennett, and that is that we need to have more oversight. Some kind of way there needs to be some oversight. There's a problem when you have 5 people who are making the decisions. There needs to be some transparency. They need to know that we're watching some kind of way. The prices need to be regulated, and before it happens, someone else needs to come about and approve that.
Thank you. This next question, I believe, starts with Eddie Jones. The $8.1 million riverfront development project aims to be a game changer for Paducah, but there has been debate over the project's design. Is this a project that you stand behind? Why or why not? And what is or should be the future of Paducah's riverfront?
Well, I guess you know where we're going here. First of all, with the riverfront, with this commission, I mean, it's kind of like if you swim halfway across the river, you got to swim somewhere. So, I mean, we're halfway across the river. We can't just stop. And it's, the project has come together. Whether I would have voted for it initially, I don't know. I go back to, it is one of those things that doesn't necessarily make people want to live in Paducah, because you can drive there if you want to. But if we connect it, and you are connecting it through the Greenway Trail, but by connecting it through a bikeable, walkable way, it does add to that. And so it adds to our quality of life. We are where we are. It looks nice, and I think it's going to be done before I take office.
Thank you. Ms. Wilson.
Our community was given $10 million from the federal government in multiple grants to use for riverfront development. And during the process of that, it has changed. It's changed locations. It's changed a little bit about the direction of it. But I would not give back $10 million to the federal government, because it would just go somewhere else to another community. I believe it was given to us for the riverfront development. There were certain guidelines set with that we had to meet, and that's what we're meeting. If you have seen the drone that flew over it, that showed the beauty of it, I think that once it's unveiled, people will be very excited about it. It's a new green space downtown that people can watch the solar eclipse come August. They can spend time down there with their family. We hear frequently about riverfront developments in other communities. We've been to Owensboro. We've seen that as a community. We've been to Clarksville. We've seen theirs. We are a river city, so why wouldn't we want to develop our riverfront even more and expand it from the Carson Center all the way down to the Convention Center and new hotel?
Thank you. Ms. Howard.
Yeah, so this train has already left the station, as we know, so we will have a new riverfront development project. So I hesitate to look back on that because I think that's already passed. As Eddie said, I think it will be halfway done by the time anyone takes new office. But I do like to take the opportunity to look back at the decision-making process and look at how we did that. You know, deciding on a transient boat dock, yes, had some attachments to grant money, so absolutely. I am a grant writer, but oftentimes the rule in grant writing is that you don't write for the grant. You look at your projects, you build a vision, and then you go out and find the grant money to match your vision. And that's one thing I think that we might have done in reverse here. We did also base our decision to put a transient boat dock in on about a 7 to 8 to 10 year study. I'm not quite sure on that because there was a study showing some recreation boats coming down the river. But unfortunately, that has changed. That culture has changed. And I'm not sure that we're going to see the level of boating that we think we are. I hope I'm surprised. I'll be happy if I am. So, thank you.
Well, actually, we did have a plan. It was done by JJR in Madison, Wisconsin. We did have the plan before we got the money. The money was promised to us. We had to have the plan to receive the money. The original plan included all the way down from Broadway to Kentucky, but because of a petition with 5,000 signatures on it, we had to scuttle that part of the riverfront plan, and we moved it toward the executive end. So that's how we became that project rather than the full project, which was that one as well as Broadway to Kentucky. So, you know, plans change. You have to be nimble to make things happen, and you have to take bold steps to make things happen. And I think the commission, past mayor, and the present commission and mayor have done that.
Thank you. Mr. Abraham.
That project has been crazy. I mean, you had everything from mussels that were apparently very, very unique. So you couldn't even look in the area where they were. So EPA's like, no, can't touch those. So you had to move the project. I was standing in front of Wilson Stage the other day, and this guy came in. He didn't even say hello. He just jumped right in. Why are you throwing all the rocks in the river? He's talking, and while he's talking, it occurred to me where we were standing. You know, at some point, this was water. Someone made the decision to put rocks in the river to build this up so that we can enjoy some of the things we see on Thursday night. The way I see it is this. You make a decision. You stand by your decision based on the information you have. It's not going to be perfect. You're always going to have naysayers, but that's okay. We knew that when we got in the game. So I think it's going to be an area where a lot of folks are going to come and enjoy it.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett.
I'm not an expert on personal boating, so I actually put together a little, I got together a few folks who were because I wanted to learn, I wanted to understand this issue. And I mean, basically, we need to have some kind of docking so people can dock in Paducah. That's true. Would I have done it the way they did? No, I wouldn't have spent nearly as much money. I would have done it smaller. Probably would have done something in the ballpark of 15 slits, 30-foot slits. Gas is not as important as it was. At least it can be minimized because people are buying more pontoon boats now. As people flow through the river, it's just the places they stop, it's not as much as a concern. But at the end of the day, this is one of these projects where it's going forward anyway. I would have done it a little different, but it's going to end. We're going to have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those rocks were really expensive, Richard. And the point I think I would take from the lesson I would learn.
Which rocks are you talking about?
The ones that went in the river at the pilings that kept sinking because somebody didn't do a $30,000 test in order to find out that they needed more rock than that they originally planned for. So
that's true.
That is true, and I hold the current commission accountable for not holding the department head accountable and the city manager accountable for that flub.
Let me tell you, I'm excited about all that's taking place down at the riverfront. As it has already been stated, the train has left the station, And I would certainly not be a person who would try to sabotage that. I would want to do whatever I could to help make that project work. However, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected as city commissioner, I will not be excited about any more revitalization plans until I see a plan that's going to revitalize the entire city. I want to see something that's going to happen for the Aunt Janes and the Uncle Bobs in my church. Most of the folk who are in my church, or in our communities, I should say, they're not going to benefit from what's going on at the river. They're not going to benefit from the boat dock. I want to see what are we going to do for the average Joe citizen of Paducah. Then I'll be excited about spending some millions of dollars.
May I just add one thing, and that is that unlike Owensboro, our river is a working river. What we have set aside for leisure is fine, but we have an opportunity on both sides of that stretch of land to work with the River Authority to develop that land for economic uses, for jobs for our citizens, and I think we have an obligation to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Holland. Oh, okay.
Please don't write an editorial about Ronaldo saying average Joe. I got in a lot of trouble.
Oh,
Yes, you did.
well, I don't want to get in your trouble, so please don't write it.
Just comment on that, on the, when you talk about creating opportunities for individuals, that's such a broad scope. Specifically, what are we talking about? Are we talking about creating an environment where everyone has an opportunity to succeed based on their initiative and work ethic? Is that what we're talking about? Or are we talking about something other than that? I want, as a commissioner, I want to make sure that and some of the ideas that we talked about tonight, to create an environment where everybody feels that they have an opportunity. Now, if there's some areas where you feel that there are some barriers, legitimate barriers, where you don't have an opportunity to compete in the process, then we got to fix that.
Thank you, Mr. Abraham. Thank you. Ms. Holland.
So I knock on about 120 doors a day, and people are really mad about the rocks, y'all. They're real mad. And I think that it is central to the issue I keep bringing up, which is a loss of trust. And it's not because of the development, although a huge part of what I hear over and over again from the citizens of Paducah in a very diverse arrangement of neighborhoods is that they feel like that project was not for them and it did not benefit them. That is a universal thread I hear no matter what neighborhood I'm in. Absolutely. And so there is people really being upset about the project generally and who it was to benefit and the way it was executed. Ann is exactly right. There were mistakes were made, and the people of Paducah, from what I've heard from knocking on doors, feel like no one was held responsible for those mistakes.
Sure. Thank you. All right, we have one final question before we'll go to conclusion remarks.
Yep.
Steve?
And I think this is a good one to end with. Paducah is a very diverse community in its racial and its socioeconomic makeup. Do you feel all of the... I'm sorry. Paducah is a very diverse community in its racial and socioeconomic makeup. Do you feel everyone's voice is being heard in this community? If not, what can be done that will make Paducah more inclusive and more responsive? Sandra?
You know, I think that type of diversity makes our community unique. I met with Dr. Reese, the new president of the community college, this week to talk about what we could possibly do to recruit even more international students to our community college, to our School of Art, to help bring that here. There's another city in in Kentucky that has an international person charged with international communities liaison for that city. So I would hope that I'd like to see us get to there and to add more. I think it well rounds your community. We could have more listening sessions. You know, we are out and about and talking to them and trying to help if they're coming here. So I would absolutely look for new ways to include them here. I think we have to include employment opportunities for them and look how we can recruit that.
This is something that is near and dear to my heart. I have talked a lot during this campaign about our approach to neighborhood development, because the reality is, when it comes down to it, we all spend time at our own homes, in our own neighborhoods, and with the people who surround us. And when we look at empowerment, I don't knock on quite as many doors as Sarah Holland does, but I'm getting close to that. And I find such great leaders in every part of our city. I do. People who are waiting for their voices to be heard. And so my approach to neighborhood development, I think, would get to the core of what we're talking about here. And that is a true empowerment model, where we're looking at finding leaders in each of our 52 neighborhoods who all come together at the table and talk about what their issues are back in their own communities, back in their own neighborhoods. That's 52 leaders that we're talking about that really demonstrates the diversity of our city, and can really take that back to their own neighborhoods, and then using the city's leadership, empower their local neighborhoods.
Thank you.
Most neighborhood associations are formed because the neighborhood had a problem. Lowertown Neighborhood Association was formed because we had a problem with drug deals, with slumlords. It was formed many years ago before that, but revitalized when I moved to Lowertown. It was formed when, Ann?
It was zoned in 1980.
So that was the first neighborhood association there. And then we have a West End Neighborhood Association that was formed because of the development that was going in behind them. So, each neighborhood is unique, but there's got to be a coalition of people that want their neighborhood's voices heard. And, how do we find those leaders within that, those neighborhoods? That's something that we need to work on. Racial Unity Group is here tonight. I mean, it's amazing the job they're doing in Paducah to further race relations.
Thank you. Mr. Abraham.
Neighborhood associations, that's a tool. You have to care about where you live. Back some time ago, neighborhoods were different. Folks knew who lived next door to them. So I think that's something that may sound old-fashioned, but what we're talking about is exactly that. I don't want to live in a neighborhood with rundown houses. If I see something going on in my neighborhood that's not positive, I want to speak up about it. How do I do that? Is this a tool, this neighborhood association, is this a tool that's still relevant? Do we need to blow that up and come up with something new? I know that when there's issues in a neighborhood and folks come to City Hall and talk about it, I'm encouraged by that. That lets you know that they're passionate about where they live. We all have responsibilities. We all have personal choices. So let's make it tough. Well, I'm living in a neighborhood that's gone, used to be great, it's not so great. Who are the people that live in those neighborhoods? Are you speaking up? Are you making the issues known? Or is it one of those things where the commission goes or government goes down and look at your neighborhood and point and say, okay, this is what we're going to do?
Thank you, Mr. Abraham. Thank you. Mr. Bennett.
As I mentioned at the beginning, this is one of the 3 key items of my campaign. Guys, it's real simple. The job of City Commission is to represent the entire community and be accessible to them. Sitting next to Mr. Wilson right there is a stack of my business cards. They have my cell phone on them. You can call me anytime you want. That's the job. The first thing we need to do is be accessible to everyone. The second thing is to have more events like this. And in fact, if the 5 of us who win can agree to do this again in 6 months, I'll be there. But the biggest thing people have to understand is that we are a small community in which we can only succeed as one. If you represent a small group of the community, that's not leading, that's lobbying. And that's not what we need. We need leaders that understand that we're all going to flow together, otherwise it doesn't work. It's the basis of being a city commissioner. Thank you.
Ms. Green.
Neighborhood redevelopment is near and dear to my heart as well, since I have been very active very early on in the Lowertown. The housing stock to be top-notch. We also have a wonderful history in Uppertown that needs to be celebrated. We find in each neighborhood what works for them, and then we make a whole big plan on those 52 neighborhoods, prioritize them, and let the citizens direct where they need government help
Thank you.
to make this happen.
Thank you. Reverend Henderson.
I certainly don't get an opportunity to go to as many doors as Sarah goes to, but I don't have to, because I can just sit in my office and I can tell you for sure that the citizens of Paducah don't feel as if they have a voice in what's taking place in city government right now. One of the things that I suggested even in the primary is that if I'm elected, I would try to challenge our fellow commissioners to get out of City Hall, to come out of the City Hall, to partner with businesses, to partner with churches, and to have these kinds of meetings and these kinds of settings so we could explain to the citizens exactly what's going on. In layman's terms, how does this affect you? How will this move you and empower you? We don't feel like we have. Most people don't feel like we have a voice. In terms of this whole race relations piece, this group of people have been meeting at our church for over a year. We come together weekly and we talk about each other's struggles, we talk about each other's challenges, and as a result of that, we have become friends. And if anything is going to change in our community on any level, there's got to be some honest conversation about what's really going on in our city, deal with what we got to deal with, and then come up with a solution.
Thank you. Ms. Holland.
I couldn't mirror and agree enough with the racial unity group. It's some of the most powerful conversations I've ever had in my life was in that group, and I challenge everyone here and everybody watching on Facebook to try and attend. Something that hasn't come up is the diversity in hiring at City Hall. I went to the budget presentation. I was the only candidate there, and every single department chair until recently was a 50-plus white guy. Nothing against white guys. I'm raising 3 of them. But when you have the same kind of person around the table, right, you get the same kind of solution. Right. And so if we don't have representation in City Hall at the department chairs, if we're not looking to increase the diversity among not just one department, but all the departments, and not just at lower levels, but all the levels, then you don't see that representation no matter how many listening groups you do. And that's a big way that the City Commission acts is through hiring. And so I would really like to see more diversity at City Hall itself, since they're the ones making the decisions that affect all these neighborhoods that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
30 seconds. Yeah.
Real quick. A lot of those department heads, it's pretty much the same department heads when I first got elected at City Hall. Now, here's the thing. There's not a lot of turnover at that level.
But there's going to be soon.
There's going to be soon, and then we can deal with that, and I fully agree. But, you know, when you talk about that, those guys that are there, they're there. They're going to be retiring soon, which does what? Create an opportunity to do something so that landscape looks a little different. So just wanted to throw that in there.
Can I have a quick... Oh.
Sure.
Go ahead. You go first.
One of the things I think that's important is that we've got to begin now. There's got to be a plan now to do what we need to do. The orders come from the top down. And so therefore someone at the top has to say, this is what we want the landscape to look like, and hold the people accountable if it doesn't look that way. Because if we don't have a plan, if we don't start now, when there is a turnover, it'll be the exact same thing we have.
And I do want to add, that is so true. Many of the department chairs are coming up for retirement. And when I talk about the next generation of Paducah and the next generation of leaderships, they deserve representation in those decisions that could affect city for decades. We have department chairs that have been there for decades. And when they retire, we'll be filling them with department chairs that could potentially be there for decades. And the next generation deserves a say in that. And every community in Paducah deserves a say and deserves to be represented there.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
All right. So we're talking about, what was the question again?
Diversity.
How to deal with the diversity, right?
The question is, Paducah is a diverse community in its racial and socioeconomic makeup. Do you feel everyone's voice is being heard? And if not, what can be done to make the community more inclusive and responsive? Okay, and that's what I thought the question was. I don't want to talk specific about hiring policies, but I will say this. My father said to me, and I say to my daughter, you don't have to see eye to eye to work shoulder to shoulder. You don't have to see eye to eye to work shoulder to shoulder. How do you
embrace the diversification, and frankly, it is important. In fact, I go back to the book that Rebecca Ryan wrote, The Mind of the Millennial, how important it is for, as you're recruiting town, to make sure you're not that old town where you've got to, you know,
Old Boys Network. You're
right.
trying to say
That's
you're
what
in
I'm
the
saying.
state, it's okay.
To be in charge, you've got to have been there a long time, and it is important that we be inclusive. I think I will give. I attended the service that Brother Henderson and Reverend Nathan Joyce put together, and I thought it was excellent. I attended the evening discussion that Dr. Bernice Belt invited me to. I believe if you combine your intellect, your communication, and kindness, you can embrace your diversification and use it as your strength.
Thank you. We'll now go to closing remarks, and we'll begin with Ms. Harless.
Oh, great. Well, thanks again, everyone, for being here and toughing out 90 minutes. I'm sure that we met the 90-minute mark, that's for sure. You know, I just want to close with this. I am young. That is very true. And I know in this campaign, a lot of people have been concerned that I might not have the level of experience that Gail has in order to lead this city. But I'll tell you what, my education and my executive opportunities that I've had have really helped me get the skill set that's needed to take this city to the next step. The tipping point is real. If you've ever read Malcolm Gladwell's book, it is a real thing, and we are at the tipping point. Everyone today on this panel has pretty much been describing the tipping point. And I want to be the one that takes Paducah over the tipping point so that my kids and Sarah's kids and everyone else's kids in this room want to stay in Paducah or come back to Paducah and make this place the home that they want to invest in. So thank you all again so much for being here tonight, and I look forward and ask for your vote on November 8th.
Thank you. Ms. Kaler.
I guess what I would like to ask everyone in this room tonight and anyone listening to this on the news medias, on Facebook, is to look at my record as a city commissioner and as the mayor for 4 years, and that I have been a very fair person to everyone that I've dealt with, that I have worked really hard to increase racial diversity within our boards that I can appoint people to, because diversity is not just the color of our skin, it's our sexual. You know, we have a very diverse commission. We have 3 females and an African American on our commission. So, you know, diversity is something that we have to work at, and something that I want to continue to do. I do have the experience to lead Paducah forward, and I would ask for your vote November the 8th.
Thank you. Mr. Abraham.
1972, my dad moved us to Paducah. It became my city. In Thomas Jefferson Apartments, I remember looking out the back window and I saw a playground. I'm thinking, wow, I got swing set slides in my backyard. I mean, you can't get any better than that, right? Moving forward, I was fortunate enough, so when my dad passed away, a lot of people have stepped up to help my mom and my sister and I. Didn't look like me. Yet they had enough respect for my father to extend that courtesy and that love to us. I've never forgotten that, and I try to govern myself with the remembering that I'm a junior. That means my dad gave me his name. As far as being accessible, I'm living in the same house. I don't know about some of you guys, but I get a lot of knocks on my door wanting to know what's going on downtown. So I'd ask for your vote on November 8th.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, everybody. This has been absolutely phenomenal. Thanks to everybody on the panel. What everyone just said, especially Brandy, is true, which is that we are at the shift right now where the next 10 years are going to determine the path that we take as a city as different people retire and different people shift, which is definitely coming up. So this election is very important. Keep in mind on these city commission positions, it's a two-year gig. So you definitely need to put people in those seats that have the knowledge and experience to hit the ground running and make a difference. I really need your vote. I look forward to working together with you to help the community grow and prosper. Please take one of my cards. Please go to my Facebook and my website. Anything else you need, give me a call. Other than that, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I pledge to you that I will try to change the culture of City Hall to hold city manager and department heads accountable for what actions they take, and to try to develop a can-do, a how can I help you attitude on the part of the city staff, which I think in some cases is lacking. There are others that are wonderful employees, but they need a little Ritz-Carlton course. I think we need to increase our funding for neighborhood revitalization. We've talked about that ad nauseum, and everybody wants it. I'm the only one that's done it. We need to work with the neighborhood residents to start from the ground up, grassroots up, not top down, and listen to those needs, because what's going to work for the West End and what's going to work for Upper Town are not the same thing. Finally, I think it behooves us to be very vigilant in maintaining our infrastructure, whether it's the flood wall, City Hall, or any of the city-owned buildings. Let's get a plan out there and take charge of what our city's all about. Thank you. I would like your vote too.
Thank you, Reverend Henderson.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for allowing us to come tonight and to share with you a part of our vision for the city. I've been in Paducah for 24 years. As I said earlier, I raised my family here, and Paducah is indeed my home. I don't have experience being a commissioner because I've never served in that capacity, but I do have experience in being a community servant, and that's what I do every day when I get up and go down to the Washington Street Church. I prepare to serve the people who may come through that office. I'd appreciate your vote. I humbly ask for your vote on November the 8th. Here's some reasons why. I put an acronym together, ADVIT. I'm aware of the needs of this community. I'm aware firsthand of the needs. I have a vision for all of Paducah. My goal is to work for everybody. I'm an independent thinker. I listen to everybody, but I think on my own, and I'm diligent. And every vote that I will cast as a city commissioner will be for all of Paducah. So I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Holland.
I wish I had an acronym, but I don't. Thank you so much for coming tonight. This has been amazing. I think that I offer something unique. I am a fifth-generation Paducah native. My great-grandparents started Allen Auto Sales and raised me to care deeply about this town. I am the only person up here raising young children of my own in this town. I came back here because I couldn't imagine raising them anywhere else, and not just because of the help babysitter from my grandparents sitting in the back of the room, but I love this town. I am passionate about Paducah, and I am invested in seeing it grow just because I am growing a family here, and I want my children to stay or come back to this town. And there is nobody that loves this town more than me. You can ask everyone I went to law school who rolls their eyes every time you say Paducah. We know it's the greatest town. We should all move to Paducah. Yes. And so I will bring that passion to City Commission, and that is why I'm asking for your vote on November 8th.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
Well, I want to thank you for the support you gave me in the primary. I think I've had more fun running than anyone else. I don't know. You're doing a lot of walking. But, it has been fun, and I compliment all 8 of us, or the 7 of the rest of the mayor candidates. I think it's been a class campaign. I'm a nuts and bolts kind of guy. I write questions for a living, and that's what you can expect out of me if you elect me city commissioner. I'm going to do the diligence. I'm going to study and analyze the problems, and I'm going to ask questions. I think 3 words are important: sheep, cheerleader, and collaboration. It's important that the next city commissioner, whoever wins, is not a sheep. Plural of sheep, by the way, is sheep, and the singular of sheep is a sheep. I looked it up today. It's important that the commission lead and not the city manager. We set the course. We set the culture. It's important that we're not cheerleaders. We're not just saying they're doing a great job. We actually do the questions, do the diligence. And it's important that we can collaborate and work together. I think I fit those skills. I'd like your vote. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Wilson.
Well, thank you all for being here tonight. My guess is all of you live in the city, or else you would not be here. And you have chosen to live in the city. And so I'm going to be a cheerleader, because I want to say that when you leave here, I really wish I had a Paducah proud bumper sticker to put on your cars, because I don't want us to leave here thinking about just the doom and gloom that some of us have heard through the questions that have been used and the answers that have given. We are a great community. You've chosen to live here. Every day I have the opportunity to work with many businesses throughout this community. I attend lots of meetings and hear from the people. We can be better, and we are working on that in different ways, through building up our businesses to help them to be more successful, through building up leadership programs to help our people to have the skills that they need to have, through working with our educational institutions so that we can offer more higher education for our citizens, everything that we can do to build up our community. So I'm committed to this, I'm passionate about it, and I really appreciate your vote on November 8th.
Thank you. And this concludes tonight's Paducah Mayoral and City Commissioner Candidate Forum. Would you all please give the candidates a round of applause? Thank you. Yeah. I'm Matt Markgraf. On behalf of WKMS, I'd like to thank all of the candidates for joining us, my colleague Steve Wilson of the Paducah Sun, everyone in the room here tonight, everyone on Facebook watching, thank you. And I'd also like to thank Murray State University's Paducah Regional Campus for hosting us tonight, and our technical crew, of course. Thank you so much. Have a good night.